Hey everyone, welcome to episode 190 of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman and Jake Abrams. What's up? How's it going, guys?
How's it going, dude? It's been a long time.
It has, but it's always nice to have you back. That's for sure.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel so welcome here.
Yeah, you should. All right. Normally we hop in with a bunch of news and nonsense. There's not a whole lot, but did see today that J.K. Dobbins is cleared for stuff to do football things. I think he's a free agent, so that's all I have for news and nonsense. Jacob Dobbins could do football stuff.
I mean, yeah, like it's interesting. I mean, I feel like it's a great sell window in Dynasty, right? Like you've been holding him for this moment at this point. If you've been holding him at all, I mean, somebody's going to get hyped up about it. He'll probably sign to a team here over the next couple of weeks, and that's when you pull the trigger.
Yeah, what's the gap between J.K. Dobbins and Damian Harris right now?
Jeez.
All right, sorry, too soon. Too soon.
Damian Harris did retire.
Shout out, Dame. Damn, bro, that was brutal. Why'd you do him like that?
He didn't make the show sheet. I felt like he had to be called out.
Well, really, you're doing J.K. Dobbins like that. Like, damn, man, one foot out the door. Yeah, you don't got like. Would you pay a fourth for J.K. Dobbins, or would you just sell him for literally anything?
I would sell him for anything at this point.
Okay, I'd send a fourth, I think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there you go. Maybe you can get a third out of somebody. I don't know.
You're right. Maybe I'm going to sell to you at this point, but we'll find out.
I'm a glass half full guy. Hope for the best for all these guys. All right, cool. So what we did do, this will be like the main topic before we hop into our profiles for the week. We all finished up a startup draft. Billy got together with a bunch of buddies and us and got us in there. And
you guys don't qualify as buddies?
Well,
No, I'm a competitor.
These Southeast Coast elites and then us Pacific Northwest D-gents. It's like polar opposites. Like you couldn't get possibly further from these people physically than we are up here in Oregon and Washington. But
it's true. And somehow this was like the fastest draft the fastest slow draft I think I've ever done, which was pretty wild.
1 week, less than a week.
A lot of angst.
Yep.
They were, this group was excited and ready to finish this draft. Yeah. 31 rounds is long. Like it's a long draft. I mean, especially if you're not like used to it, I can understand, but I think it's very fun. I think the slow draft is a unique experience. So I was happy. I think a lot of the members of this league hadn't really been through a slow draft. I know some of them had, but yeah, so it was an interesting dynamic for sure.
Okay, let's talk about it. I think people are doing some startups now, and maybe we could shed some insight to how we decided we wanted to draft, and maybe some anomalies that we saw during the draft. What do you guys got?
Well, I mean, I can jump in here. I think we each want to talk a little bit about kind of what our strategy was. I think, I don't know, I always play the board a little bit. I didn't intend on not taking a quarterback in the first, or for my first or second pick. Generally at the turn, you're trying to secure one here for a super flex dynasty draft, right? And just the way the board fell, it didn't quite make sense to me. Having Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb hit the 112 in 201 is relatively unheard of. I haven't seen that happen too many times. And I had something similar to this happen last year in a Debbie startup where I got, I think, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase at this same spot. And it felt really similar to that. And I felt like I couldn't quite bypass that opportunity. So, I mean, generally my strategy is zero running back, but this kind of enhanced the idea of going in that direction because, loading up on those wide receivers. I also had the opportunity to get Jordan Love coming around the third spot. And at that point, all of the really good running backs are gone, my tier one. And so I'm going to fade that position. And I did that to oblivion in this one. As you can see, I've never really done it to that level, but I guess my one comment just to start off here, and I can pass the baton, but I mean, Justin Herbert at 107 is as early as I've seen Justin Herbert go in a draft. I think his ADP is more around the 110-ish area. I was actually anticipating that was going to be the maybe pick that I was going to be left with, but that kind of, I think, shifted things around, in the direction. That and Kyler Murray, I think, going as early as he did kind of shifted the board in a way that I hadn't quite seen before. So, I guess, Jake, what was kind of your attack on this draft, and I guess what do you think about some of the way it went?
Yeah, no, thanks for passing over the baton. I think really I was in a spot where I wanted to try and center my team around a young quarterback, and I knew that going into this draft. I didn't think that Justin Jefferson was going to fall to the 108. And so once he did, I kind of pivoted and just said to myself, I'm going to go almost in kind of a rebuilt state. I don't think he'll have necessarily the value gain that I want in this upcoming year, especially in the startup, to necessarily build around performance this year, just given the QB state in Minnesota. So I somehow found a way to fall onto the 101, the 103, and 104 in my first 4 picks. And that really defines the rest of the draft for me, where I was really just trying to get ample value at every single pick and almost go for ceiling over floor every single time. So you'll see picks like JSN at the 605, Will Levis at the 805, Cole Kmet at the 1005, and then the back-to-back-to-back kind of running back handcuff grouping, which is that Zamir White, Chase Brown, Kendre Miller group, which honestly I'm pretty thrilled with in terms of just overall running back value. I think I'm putting myself in a pretty good situation from a trade perspective to be able to sell all 3 of those, hopefully at some point this year, as starting running backs. Obviously, Zamir is probably going to start the season off as one, but I do think that there is a chance that Chase Brown and Kendre Miller both can finish the season as RB1s for their team and potentially flip, 12th, 13th round draft capital in a startup to late first draft round draft capital moving forward, which is exactly what this team is looking for, right? I'm trying to flip those intermediate pieces and turn them into elite pieces moving forward, because I know for a fact I'm not competing this upcoming season, and that's okay. That was kind of the overarching pathway that I think that this draft board fell to me. The one thing I will say, and it still kind of haunts me at night, is still picking the 103 over Jordan Love. I think I could have still picked Jordan Love and continued with this build and go, Justin Jefferson, 101, Jordan Love, and then the 104. I think that still could have been there potentially. And so being able to understand that value there would have been better, but I got so excited and enticed by the idea of owning 3 of the first 4 rookie picks, especially in this draft class, that I think I let that blind me. And, it's always good to be retrospective and introspective about how you're going through these processes. So yeah, how about you, Uriah?
Oh, well, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, they say. So this one, I came into this, it was the Kentucky Derby style draft, and I came into this, I believe there's only like maybe 4 spots left. So I ended up with the 110, which is fine, which, puts me, right before Josh. And then after him is Billy, and then Billy, Josh, and then me. And we've been doing this together for years now, a lot of years now. So that's actually probably, if I had thought about it and seen where they were picking, I might have gone differently because they know me pretty well. But yeah, so I started off with Anthony Richardson. Billy is kind of basically, it's a Billy pick. So Anthony Richardson, he's been pretty high on him. I just got to trust what Billy saw as far as throwing the ball goes. I know he's rushing.
Putting it on me. Great.
Yeah, if I fail, this is all because of Billy. I'm starting out with that.
I love it.
It was sweet. The last draft we did, the Dynasty Underdogs 4, I really ended up with I don't know. It seemed like I was running back heavy, but it wasn't really like quality running back. So getting there at the second pick, I ended up with Brees Hall, which I think is just a really smart choice there. So like, yeah, the next few picks, I wanted to get Jordan Love coming in 3. Billy ended up with Jordan Love. I was hoping he'd come back to me actually in the 4th there. And so I did not pick another quarterback until round 5. I was really sweating bullets. Thought Cousins might get taken, but I ended up taking Pittman to pair up with Anthony Richardson, which I kind of like. And then selecting Kyle Pitts and then picking up Cousins later. I felt pretty good about all that. I was able to get the 108 in the 5th round, which I thought was an absolute steal by that time. I've seen a lot of times where that whole first round of rookie picks is pretty much gone by then. Followed up with a couple of the running backs, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. Other than that, I kind of just smashed some rookie picks and some wide receivers there at the end. I sent a trade offer to Billy, Brees Hall for CeeDee Lamb straight up, and he didn't even decline it. So I don't know if you saw it or not. I didn't know if it was that egregious, but he didn't even respond.
I went to decline it today.
He forgot to mention Billy's RB1 is Jaleel McLaughlin, and
I was going to get there.
He could use some help, so I thought, hey man, maybe he wants Brees Hall. I could use CD because my number 1 wide receiver is Michael Pittman, and I don't know how well that's going to work out for me. But I got the 108 to 205 and a couple of the working picks where I'm hoping that I can kind of help my wide receiver stuff there. But that's basically it. I didn't really go in with a plan. I just kind of played the board as it went, and I think I kind of got some value on the rookie picks that I wasn't expecting. So, yeah.
Wow, calling me out. I don't even know where to start. Listen, if I wanted Brees Hall over CeeDee Lamb, I would have taken him at the 201.
Nah, I don't know if you would have.
No. No, but I was going in there to decline it today, and I thought I saw it revoked maybe, but
I did.
No, yeah, like I'm first of all, I'm just not really into buying running backs in the offseason, but when I have a guy like CD who's just so solid at this time of the year and just at this point in the career arcs, I'm probably just going to hold that pick. But I do love the shout about the rookie picks in this draft because in general, I think where I got the 107, you got the 108 there. So yeah, where I got the 107, I hadn't seen that happen in, I don't think maybe any mock that I've been in, or I just haven't really noticed it, but definitely not in any of the real startups that we've done. I haven't seen the 107 fall that far. And I was just kind of surprised to see it land there. So I felt like that was an easy smash. And I felt like the rookie picks in general were kind of a value in this draft. As, I mean, Jake certainly found out. I think he ran into a bunch of value in terms of the rookie picks there, which is why his team looks the way it does. I also think that, the tight ends were interesting in this draft.
Yes.
Right. Like, I think some of them went in the appropriate place. I thought, I understand, obviously, having Kirk Cousins there. Maybe we're just generally too low on Kyle Pitts still. I was a little surprised that you went Kyle Pitts where you did, because I was kind of hoping that I could take him a little later, thinking that maybe his value hadn't really climbed yet. But clearly that's happened. And I thought TJ Hawkinson was a serious value. Really, all the tight ends I got, and I've been shocked all offseason to see Kittle where he's going in the 8th round. And I think Mayer's that's where he goes. But I was shocked to see them where they were, and I was happy to get them where they were. One thing I do wish I did was probably maybe take I don't know. I don't wish I did anything different in that Mayer spot, but I wish I found a way to get a Zamir White or a Chase Brown or one of the guys that Jake signed me on, because he did his best to piss me off in this draft.
Yes.
With those selections, like you could just see I got sniped anywhere I was going to go for one of those running backs. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, when you look at this draft, those are the things that stand out to me are the rookie picks. And each draft I've been through this offseason, the state of the tight end position and where each are ranked feels a little off, and it feels like you can take advantage of it. And that's kind of what I found here. So yeah, I don't know. Anybody have any other comments on this draft?
Yeah, I did have a couple of additional items I thought were pretty interesting.
Give it to us.
I think it was just the nature of maybe the folks that were in the league itself and how that kind of tailored to how the board fell. But, Jalen Hurts going over Patrick Mahomes, I know I know it's a simple 102
Good call.
versus 103, but like, man, that's an eye opener to start off the draft. And you know, that's one of those situations where you're waiting for the startup to literally start for X number of weeks. And, you know, you see some folks jump into some mocks and you're like, all right, I can tell like their valuations are a little interesting, but regardless, you don't necessarily know until it's the actual day of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
There were some weird picks there. Travis Etienne at the end of the second over Trevor Lawrence over Puka Nacua. He got lucky that Trevor Lawrence came back around and was able to snag him at the 3-2. There was, you know, the Jordan Love drop all the way down to 312.
I wanted him in the fourth.
I just think that's
you're being
he
doesn't even make it
point. Yeah, like dude,
so are you. He doesn't make it to the end of the third. He doesn't make it to the beginning of the third half the time. So
he doesn't. I took him at the 206 in another league this next day. Like, it's just a reality of understanding your micro markets, I think, and seeing where those values are. And, you know, by all means, like, I'm all for trying to take advantage of certain situations, but sometimes we get too greedy, I think. And no offense, Uriah, but I think you got way too greedy thinking that you could get Pittman stack over Love in that situation and not just go for the quarterback there.
Truthfully, you might have gotten Pittman coming back around anyway.
Yeah,
if you did it the other way around.
Him, so
I wasn't going to pick him. But just to Jake's point, knowing the micro market, that might have worked out for you. I'm not positive, obviously. I don't know, but
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The last couple of things I did think were super interesting was the 104 dropping to the mid fourth. So you have Tank Dell over the 104. You have Drake London over the 104. You have Kyle Pitts over the 104. And Tua. On ADP, the 104 is going ahead of all four of those. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see that here. This was one of the higher drafts I've seen in general, where Tank goes as high as he did. This was also one of the highest I've seen Kyle Pitts. This is kind of the value for Drake London now.
I mean, Nico Collins, if we're talking about Tank Dell. Nico went ahead of Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, he went in the third. I honestly missed that. Honestly, I missed it because he went so early. Holy shit. No offense. 305.
Wide receiver 10.
That is, you know what? That's a pick.
I mean, he clearly wanted that stack with CJ Stroud. I couldn't, for the life of me, have the balls to do that. But, I mean, more power to you.
Yeah, and, you know, there was also some really interesting – I've never seen anyone stack up 3 running backs to start off a draft.
Oh, that was a good one, yeah.
You know, QB, 3 running backs, and then ended up still being able to pan out with Higgins as wide receiver 1. I've seen worse wide receiver rooms, honestly. That guy actually ended up turning it around. But
I agree.
You know, those were the major ones. I did have one additional thing that I did want to quickly bring up, and this is a micro decision. Calvin Ridley or Jerry Jeudy?
I'll take Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. It's the same for me, I guess.
He's proven absolutely to be the better receiver in his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just got paid a bunch of money. If Will Levis even turns out to be half the quarterback, then we'll be all right. And I mean, yeah.
I guess, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, Deshaun Watson's better than Will Levis, but like, is he?
It's not really that close to me. Like, that. I don't know.
I don't know if I even go that path, honestly. Like, just QB prowess doesn't necessarily translate to wide receiver prowess in this situation.
No, not always. No.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I just look at it in terms of like a target share thing too. Like Amari Cooper is going to eat up a ton. You know, Judy's going to be sharing with Njoku. You know, not that Njoku's going to be ahead of him. He might be. We don't know. But Ridley doesn't have any kind of situation like that, other than obviously he's sharing with DeAndre Hopkins, but it's not nearly the situation. And he is right now, I think, intended to be the 1A to Hopkins 1B, not even close to the situation for Judy. So yeah, it doesn't line up for me. One thing I do want to say, I've talked about the proximity paradox thing before, but which is really having like 2 picks back to back and being able to take advantage of the value that falls there. And this draft feels like a really good example of that, where I was able to get like back-to-back value drops in terms of, just the first 2 picks, but also Jordan Love and Drake London feels like the same thing. The 107 and TJ Hawkinson, which is farther than Hawkinson usually falls right there, felt similar. There's a lot of picks in this draft that felt that way. And I guess the last thing that I'll touch on is I did go 0 running back, and it's worth mentioning that my running back one is Jaleel McLaughlin, which is a situation, that's for sure. But I do think that, not with this running back room, but I do have, the 107. I think this is the 206 and 207. I have back-to-back second-round picks. I think I'll be able to piece together some running back production to the point where I'm not going to be too worried about it. I might be able to just, trade one of those picks for a running back closer to the draft, or trade just for a running back with all of the players I have during the season. Maybe a Wicks hits a little bit. There's things that I think I can do, and I can maneuver if I need to, given the top talent depth I have at most of the positions. So that's kind of the idea when I go 0 running back, like how I'm going to survive it. Generally, I find a running back that is better than Jaleel McLaughlin to be my number 1, and I don't fade it that far. But I just kept getting sniped, and I wasn't going to be forced into taking a guy that I don't think I needed to take and just take the value that was falling to me. So that's kind of how I approached it with that 0 running back build. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem down the stretch for me.
Makes sense.
And I do just want to say, F you, Jake, because
what?
You took Zamir White, and I'm gonna say I'm 100% responsible for this, because the night before I was digging around.
No, you are.
No. Listen. Listen. The night before I was digging around, I was like, you know what? I saw this interview with Zamir White, and I was looking, I was like, this motherfucker, like, he really does have right now, he's like one of the biggest running back winners of free agency. It seems like, why not draft Zamir White? Like, he has all the potential, no competition at this point. You should probably draft the guy. And Jake listened. He went ahead and he drafted the guy 2 picks before I was going to take him.
I mean, really, once you posted the interview of him where he looked like he ate another human being, I was like, and this was literally the like day of the draft, or like in the middle of it, like right near where my pick was, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude! Like, just leave it alone. Oh, and I knew for a fact that he was going to get drafted either. And I thought it was going to be Uriah. I didn't think it was going to be Jake. I thought Jake was going to be another pick or something like that, and then Uriah was going to take him from me, but. I pushed it too far. That was definitely something that I guess a minor regret is trying to figure out a way to have not pushed, that pick so far. But I think I would have had to give up Michael Mayer in that situation. I don't think I'm comfortable doing that. So I would have had to made a trade, which I probably could have done. But yeah, all in all, really, really fun draft. I think everybody had an interesting, some interesting strategies. Some things happened to them that they weren't really used to. I mean, again, like I never go that far with the 0 running back, and Jake going all picks, and Michael Pittman over Love. Like there's some things that went down. I'm not. Listen,
I feel like I rescued my quarterback situation by taking Cousins, but
I love when you compare like 2 clear conscious thoughts versus Uriah is just like
I thought those lined up.
Yeah.
Those weren't all the same. One of these things is not like the other. All right, I don't know.
Strategy. Brain fart.
No. It was great. Oh my goodness.
It was fun though.
Yeah, I mean,
with a couple of guys
Jake
maybe
really
are new to Dynasty.
No, I'm just happy Jake's here to bring some honesty to the group.
He always does. All right.
Okay, that's all.
Also, Travis Kelce, tight end 7,
and Kittle, tight end 9.
Yeah,
I'm taking Kittle. I have stacked up, I think, like 4 shares of Kittle over the last like 2 drafts and trades I've made. Like it's been ridiculous. Like I've made, I don't know. I can't stop taking that value. To me, it's just crazy. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's fun. It was a really fun draft. Can't wait for the rookie drafts. In fact, I'm looking at all the rookie picks I have in different leagues and stuff. I'm just getting excited to have the NFL drafts and then do the Dynasty Christmas morning type thing. So,
yeah.
Prospect profiles. So this week I chose Troy Franklin and Jacob Cowing. Really, not for any major reason. I thought they would maybe be more of a versus thing in my own head, but apparently not, and that's okay. Troy Franklin would probably be going, first roundish of your rookie drafts. Jacob Cowing's probably like a third round guy, but Jacob Cowing was one of the guys that really always stood out to me when I first opened the sheets and started looking at these guys. I also really, really love Troy Franklin, so I'm gonna hop in there and talk about Jacob Cowing. So Jacob Cowing, 5'8", 168, pretty slim, but he runs a 4.38 40. Played school for 5 years. And I think that's probably one of the biggest hits that you're going to see from him is that he was just there for so long out of Arizona. 30% market share, breakout age of 18.6, which is awesome. This dude never had a market share receiving yards under 20 in his entire career, all 5 years. 61.4 college dominator. It's absolutely smashed right there. 36.8 college target share. His zone yards per route run last year was 2. His man yards per route run last year was 1.4. Career best total yard per route run was 3.8. Contested catch rate was down at 35.7. It's higher than 20%, which is kind of what I this year been trying to go for. I think maybe 25 is probably okay. Slot rate 71 or 70.1%. So he plays out of slot primarily. You guys will probably attest to this when you guys talk about what we saw on film, which is okay. We get a lot of points from slot receivers. We get a ton of points in PPR from slot receivers. There's nothing wrong with that. 5.8 yards after the catch per reception. Everything that I see on the sheets, Jacob Cowing is easily going to be a good wide receiver 2 on any team. All in all, good player, good production of everything. Kind of wish he'd come out earlier. I know that, things like NIL and the COVID year and all those other things kind of push some of these players to play a little bit longer than they usually do. But I do like Jacob Cowing quite a bit. And you could get him right now in about the mid-third round of your rookie drafts. What do you guys got on Jacob Cowing?
A little bit later, actually. If you look at our graphic, the ADP per DLF is 41. Okay. Wide receiver 21. So down there for us, we have him ranked more around what you were talking about in the third round, which makes a little sense. I think we're going to like him maybe a little bit more than consensus. And whether it should be or not, size is going to be a concern, right? Like this is going to be a concern, at least perception wise. But big hits do look big and defenders push him around. Like there's no doubt about it. The kid is slight. He just is, right? He's not bringing a lot of weight. But he does really bring excellent lateral quickness and evasiveness, burst and smooth transition speed. He's a technically sound route runner. He exhibits good nuance during the route. Like you see peak moves, you see jab steps. He closes the gap on defenders before he's going to make a move. You see some shoulder fakes in there. He's a twitchy athlete. I see a little bit of like some Emmanuel Sanders in him stylistically, just kind of how I, when I watch him, what I kind of see. And if you go and hop on our YouTube channel, you see the film room where I dig in really deep on him. And I mean, he puts dudes in a spin cycle all the time. Like on skates, these guys are completely turned around, looking the other direction, trying to figure out where he's going. And, I think that these are the kind of skills that can translate to the next level. So I really like what I see out of Cowing. Draft capital, landing spots, obviously going to matter a ton with him. It just is. The size is going to push him down down, the draft board a bit. So for me, he's going to be a guy who I'm probably going to have a good bit of. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. I hate whenever we do these stupid player profiles. I'm only on here once a month, and yet I'm like, oh yeah, Billy's right. Yeah, I love the film review. Oh, it's great. Yeah, you're right. I keep talking about the numbers. It's really at that spot where I think this guy plays so physical actually for his size. Like he's a slender dude. They call him 5'11". He's definitely probably like 5'9.5". He's probably closer to Malik Washington in Virginia than he is to anyone else in this draft, I think, in terms of just profile and how he plays. I watched 2 games probably from start to finish, and just in terms of his tape. It was the Arizona State game and the USC game. I'm just going to talk about the USC game because I actually thought it was a great game for him to ball out. There was one major lame duck that was thrown to him in the into the corner of the end zone, where he basically just free bodies into the corner, just throws a shoulder into him, bumps off of him, and it was completely legal. Catch a touchdown. Corner was probably solid, 6 foot, 6'1", and he just made that guy look slender. Second thing I do want to also call out is his quarterback in Arizona was dreadful. Fafita, no joke, put this poor guy out there a couple of times. He took some really big hits, as Billy alluded to, and really did not think that was due to him. With that being said, in his physicality, I also saw a lot of it, not just in the air, but also on the line of scrimmage. Like, for a little guy, he's definitely bodying up against cornerbacks. He is able to create separation, not just with his elusiveness, not just with his really fantastic jab step that he does as well, but more so also with upper body. Like, the dude is just a guy who wants to ball. Those guys stand out to me, man. Like, they really do. And, maybe I'm going to lose on a couple of them throughout the way, but I think that these are the types of profile players that I want to continue to buy in on, because so much of what he does looks good. 2 negatives that I did want to point out. One is that his out routes are fucking dreadful. I don't know what it is, but the dude runs like these curved out routes. They just don't look right. They just don't look like he's willing to put the right step into either his left foot or his right foot, depending on what side of the field he's on. That was a slight negative for me. But you guess what? You just don't give him that route. Like, it's pretty simple. NFL coaches know how to do that. Second is that he had a couple of second effort catches. His hands, when extended, would find him to do a slight bobble, and then on the second catch. I think in the NFL, those are going to probably be more often than not incompletions, which will probably get sound out a lot faster. But in the college game, he looked good for those elements. He looked like he was able to adapt. So as long as he's able to work on those small little nuances to his game, I think he could probably get you a lot of value out of that, probably late 3rd round, potentially even early 4th round rookie draft, wherever he might be going.
Yeah, that hands note is fair on those outbreaking routes. Like, I do feel like he's the kind of guy who could potentially develop at the next level with good coaching with those, right? Because he's a pretty sharp route runner for the most part. He has a good, a nice diverse release package. Like, he has good footwork. Like you said, the jab step stuff, he's crisp, right? So there's one that I'm thinking of, an outbreaking route. I'm trying to remember who it was against. It might have been UCLA, where he absolutely bends it out, but he still puts the guy the guy spins completely around defending him, and it's because he put a move on during it, but he still bent the route. Or I think it may have been a peek. He peeked outside, and the guy just had no idea where he was going. So I do think those nuances will potentially allow him to build at the next level. So we'll see if that happens. But yeah, it's really interesting. I actually thought, just based on kind of some of the notes that I saw, that you weren't going to like him as much as I did. So that's interesting that you kind of fell onto the same page. Before we move on here, Uriah posted this in our stats chat on the Discord the other day. This is showing what his adjusted yards per team attempt by age over time versus Marvin Harrison Jr. This isn't bad. I mean, again, he's an older prospect, and it declined as he got older, which isn't what you want to see, but encouraging at some level, I guess. We can move on.
All right. And yeah, if you want to see some 8 out of 9 routes, it's okay. Yeah, 8 out of 9 routes is really good. So we'll move on to Troy Franklin, Oregon. Really like the player. Bigger dude. I didn't see, that's the thing, when I look at the sheets, I'm not looking at height and weight and all that stuff until later. Honestly, I was pretty surprised at Jacob Cowling being so small, but it is what it is. If I watched the guy, I probably wouldn't be so surprised.
You wouldn't. He's like a garden gnome running around, but he's good.
That's all right. Put him up on one of those big 6'3" corners. They can't even reach down and grab him.
Yeah, he was definitely on stilts when they measured him. That's for sure.
All right, Troy Franklin, Oregon. They got him. Player profiler has him 6'2", 176. So tall but skinny. He ran to 4.4, 140. He only played 3 years, so he's coming out early. A breakout age of 20% market share. He never reached 30% market share of receiving yards on his team, which is a bummer, but he did it at age 19, which is A-okay. And probably A-okay for that offense. If I'm trying to think back at Oregon wide receivers, that's probably fine for him. 27% college dominator, 20.6 college target share. Those are all like, it's okay, but nothing that like really stands out where, you have Cowing with 61.4 college dominator and 36.8 college target share. So there's a pretty big discrepancy. But when we talk about yards per route run, last year's zone, Troy Franklin, yards per route run was 3.06 or 3.07. Last year, Troy Franklin, man, yards per route run was 3.36. Those are all amazing marks, great marks. Career best yards per route run was 3.3. Pretty much right in line there with Cowing had 3.8. His contested catch rate was 36.8. That's a little higher than I want, but it's not bad. We've seen guys with upwards of 60%. Slot rate was 18.2. Obviously, he's a bigger dude. He's probably not going to be playing a slot a lot. That's not so surprising. And he has a pretty respectable 6.6 yards after the catch per reception. So I'm assuming once this guy gets the ball in his hands, he's actually got a little bit of wiggle jiggle after he gets the ball in his hands. What do you guys got?
Yeah, it's funny because the numbers don't pop so much more than a guy like Cowing, but he's ranked 12th or 13th KTC for us, 11, ADP 12, wide receiver 6 or 7. Just interesting how much higher he's ranked and just kind of straight on paper. But for me, I mean, Franklin, he's obviously got track star speed. Dude is elite quickness, elite speed. He has a diverse release package. I would say he's a pretty good route runner. He honestly he reminds me a little bit of like Tyquan Thornton, but a better route runner. That's kind of how I view him. It's not great. I know he exhibits some manipulation, but he does do a lot more than Tyquan. Don't get me wrong. Like he exhibits some manipulation movements during his routes, right? He's got fairly refined technique, but he does lack some consistency play to play. And while he can evade defenders, I don't think he really forces missed tackles, right? Like I think he's good at just like breaking away in open space or, in stride when he gets the ball in his hands, something like that. But he's not gonna use his lateral agility and juke a guy out on a regular basis. Like obviously most of these guys are athletic enough to do it from time to time. But again, it's really more an open space thing than it is him being able to force missed tackles. He separates mostly with speed, but he does sprinkle in some technique. I do want to make sure that's clear, but to me, he relies more on the speed than anything. So, I mean, he's obviously a good player. I think he can be successful at the next level, but he's just not a super refined guy to me. And I don't know if that's really his game. And so he could totally develop at the next level, and the speed is a threat, and he's probably going to get drafted high. So, all good things. But he's not quite my cup of tea, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of players in this draft who I'd probably rather have over him at the back end of the first round there. We obviously have to see how it shakes out, but he's just not been my favorite guy, and I didn't think that he really popped off the screen for me, other than that speed. What about you, Jake?
Dude, I literally hate that you made that Tyquan Thornton comp because you saw the show sheet. You already saw the comp I made, but whatever. My comp, because it's so much better, is a grade A version of Jalen Hyatt. Like, I do think that, if he was a USDA prime meat, he is, Jalen Hyatt grade A version.
That ain't prime.
Prime version of that, right? He's like the A1 Wagyu instead of the A5, right? There's stuff to like. I do think that his explosiveness after the catch is definitely very present. I did watch 2 games. It was Oregon State and USC, I want to say. I try to go for some of the games that have a little bit more higher pedigree of defender talent. That's really what I would try and hope is going to be comparable. But honestly, some of the Oregon State corners were dreadful, so that didn't really help. To Billy's point, I honestly didn't really see his diverse release package. Like, I thought that the team kind of handicapped him a little bit in a way. Like, they gave him like the same 5 or 6 releases and he did them well, but I didn't feel like his actual route participation was at all that unique. Most of the way through, I found him to be relatively one note with some like micro changes there, which, you know, when you are as explosive as he is off the line, it allows you to kind of break away from those nuances. But in a similar vein to a lot of my criticism around players like Xavier Worthy or here in Troy Franklin, they lack nuance, right? They lack those elite traits. And when your elite traits are more so tailored to excessive speed, I personally want off unless you're able to pair those things with other intangibles that other players just don't have, where you can actually create those gaps. So the biggest thing that I would say with Troy Franklin is if he's able to find himself a specific role in a team rather than find himself in a team that needs him to be truly the wide receiver one, I think he'll be pretty productive as a rookie. I think he can grow. There's definitely a lot of physical frame there to become a better wide receiver, and I don't want to like tarnish his image because of that. I think it's more so just how ready is he for the NFL? In my opinion, he still has a pretty big gap for me to see really like a large scale use case for him. I do think that he's probably a wide receiver where he has kind of similar usage as a Deshaun Jackson, right? You have 5, 6 targets, most of which are, you know, ranging between 20 to 30 yard passes. That's fine. Like, there's a role for those types of players. Does that mean that Troy Franklin probably teeters to the late first, early second in the NFL draft? I think so. Does that mean that he also probably falls into that same group in Dynasty rookie mocks and actual rookie drafts? I think probably as well. So depending on where he lands in the NFL, I think we'll probably see him around that 111 to 203 range, honestly.
That Deshaun Jackson comp is a good shout. That shows up in my notes as well. But just to your point about the release package, just going right to my notes, under his beating press, but uses a lot of speed release and the same double move was like the first part of my notes, right? Which is, so, I mean, but the more I went on, I did see some like shuffle releases, some stuff like that, but he's obviously creating that short area separation more with the speed mixed with that release. So, I mean, I do think that, I guess I shouldn't say diverse, but I do think that he offers more than like a one-trick pony type thing, which some guys just have a speed release and they can't do anything else. You know what I mean? Especially with the style of player that Troy Franklin is. I do want to hit on this, AJ over here being an absolute madman. Troy Franklin over Brian Thomas. No, I mean, I think actually plenty of people might have that opinion, but to me, it's not very close. I think Brian Thomas is a much better player. He has much better size, quickness for his size. He offers really good speed. I think he's great at the catch point, just all sorts of things that I really like about him. So I just think he's more of a versatile receiver at the next level. So I'll definitely have Brian Thomas ahead of Troy Franklin. He said he's Addison-ish, which, I mean, if Addison couldn't run routes as well, then yeah, he might be Jordan Addison. I think Addison is a much, much better route runner. He is like when I describe a technician, that's what I think of, right? Where he can break down guys, you know, in the middle of his routes. He can stack guys. He can, at the top of the route, he can separate really well. Like, and he's not that big doing it either. And I just don't see that from Franklin on a consistent basis personally. He's saying we drinking that haterade. I love having AJ on here, man. Thank you for joining the show. Absolutely a pleasure. Yeah, that's all I got on Franklin. These two guys are super interesting. I for some reason feel like, you know, potentially they could be closer together than the community at large thinks. Not saying that they're that close together, but closer than first round and fourth round. I think
I
there's
agree.
somewhere in between there where these guys meet a little bit closer in the middle.
Yeah, I think to that same vein, I see Jacob Cowing being able to fit into an offense more easily, similar to that of, and I'm not going to make the comp as, they're similar players, but to that of a Tank Dell or even a Josh Downs. You saw how as rookies they were able to slot into, no pun intended, into offenses pretty easily, and a lot of their relationships with their rookie quarterbacks also helped. So that is something that Cowing probably won't have the luxury of, but there's always the chance that in the next coming weeks, Cowing could link up with a Drake May, a Jaden Daniels, a JJ McCarthy in any of the off-season work. And those types of relationships, I do think, mean a lot in this game. And I think Cowing is the type of receiver that will go probably in late third, maybe even late fourth round in the NFL draft, where, Drake is saying to the front office, hey, I really liked working with Jacob. And those are the types of relationships that might mean a lot moving forward. So something to be mindful of.
The Patriots, right? They need some receivers and stuff, and the quarterback and all
Please
that.
don't go there.
Franklin did have some crispy routes, but I do want to mention that Uriah pointed out that he didn't have a high slot percentage, and to Jake's point,
No, he did not.
Jake's point at the next level, the type of routes that Troy Franklin is typically running, and his skill set may not translate to that versatile of a player at the next level, where you're winning easier too in the slot. Typically, you're going up against mismatches that are better suited for that player most of the time. And if you can't work out of that area and you are not slotted, but you're pushed to the outside, and that's really where you're set. I just don't know. I think that like you said, it offers Jacob Cowing more opportunity to find a role than I think Franklin on a consistent basis potentially. Obviously, Franklin is going to definitely have the higher draft capital. He's going to be higher in drafts, and he's going to have more time to get right, develop, and become the player that we want him to be. So I don't think we're trying to shit on Troy Franklin here. To be honest, it might sound like that, but I just don't think we're as high on him as the community. That's all.
We have him ranked pretty high, man. Like in the
yeah,
graphic.
No, we are literally as high on him. Actually,
Yeah.
maybe higher than he's ranked 11th for us. So yeah, I think he's going to drop a little bit for us though.
Yes, sure. We will probably be slightly below market, or at least I will be. But it's important, I think, to even be slightly hypercritical of the players that you think are going to land around the late first, early second, so you can really decide on who you believe is better suited for you. Because at the end of the day, if you just go off of consensus, I think that's kind of where you fall into these buckets of taking guys that might not have the same ceiling that you are expecting. I think a lot of people make grandiose expectations of these players without really understanding their profiles. And I think this is a perfect example. And lastly, to the point that Billy was making, the NFL has changed. Like guys like Kenny Moore, who is a cornerback, he is a literal slot corner. They're getting paid the same amount of money now as literally CB1s. There's a reason. Defending out of the slot is hard as hell. So the NFL is trying to make that become a thing, because more wide receivers are playing out of the slot.
All right. One quick question for you guys before we hop into our under the hood topic. Today, would you rather pay up for Troy Franklin, where he's going in rookie drafts, or would you rather gamble on where Cowing's going in rookie drafts?
100% go with Cowing. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely glad that Uriah said this, because I wanted to jump into this point before we moved on, which is I don't want people to mistake us being like, yeah, Cowing is better than Franklin or anything like that. Like that's not even necessarily what we're saying. We're saying
the whole reason to bring it up was the disparity.
For
where
sure.
they're going.
Yep.
No, for sure. But I think overall, we're saying the talent level may be a little bit closer than everyone is expecting, but also this guy's going in like the fourth round. Like, yeah, like we love value here at Dynasty Underdog. That's what we love. Like, we're value hawks. If something's going to fall to the fourth round and we think that their talent level is even remotely close to a guy that's in the first round, like, I think that should tell you all you need to know about kind of, you know, how we approach the game and what we're looking at there. And it's just a good value bet. I think, you know, as long as he gets decent draft capital, decent landing spot, like he's not going to rise, I don't think, that much, and he'll still be a value. So that's the whole point.
Jacob Cowan,
thank
you
you.
are a Dallas Cowboy.
That wouldn't
We
be
need
bad.
a slot.
I'll
We
take
need a
it.
good
That
slot.
sounds like a good landing spot, honestly.
Yeah,
I'll
it
take
does.
it.
All right, cool. Since we have Jake here, we're obviously going to do underdog under the hood, aka what is that keeps us up at night? What do we think about when we lock the door, walk into our car to go to work in the morning? What is it that we think about? It's not other girls, ladies. Like we don't think about other girls. It's this stuff.
Lying awake in our bed, he's thinking about other women. No.
No, I don't care.
I'm thinking about. This is what I'm thinking about. All right, so I got one for you guys today. That's it. Because we're running long with the profiles and everything. So I got one for you today.
Okay.
Should you be okay? So we just finished off this dynasty draft, right? And this stuck out to me. This happened in our draft. Should you be asking for what you need before the draft ends? For example, you realize you effed up. I don't got no quarterbacks. Now you hop into the chat before the draft is over. Hey, I'm looking for a quarterback. So if there are any quarterback options left on the board, I'm taking them. Like, I know that you want them, right? So like, that's kind of my thought process. Have you ever thought about this? Do you think that that's a disadvantage? Like what, I don't know. How would you reach out during a draft? Have you ever done that?
Oof. I'll take first stab at this.
Yeah, you do that. This feels personal.
It does it. I don't know. I don't think it's personal to me. I hope.
It wasn't any of you.
Yeah,
it wasn't
okay.
any of you.
You know, it's really weird. Like if you ever wanted to inflate your price for a certain asset, this is the way to do it. Like if you want everyone to know that you're willing to pay a premium for a player, this is the way to do it. I don't think that there's like some, double bluff here where other people are like, holy shit, player A needs a quarterback and I'm going to give it to him for free. Like it's a strange play. And honestly, this happened in this League of Legends draft that we had where someone came over to me and was just like, hey, like I'm looking at a quarterback that you drafted. And I'm just like, sick. Like, what do you want me to do about it? Like you tell me the value of my player and like we can have a conversation. I think the actual like underdog under the hood aspect of this is don't do this. This is a hard no for me to ever go about trying to fill a void in your team. Other players might not be perceptive. They might not know that you have a void in your team. Some will. Like by all means, like I never send a trade to Billy or Uriah knowing that I have a potential gap in my team because I know that there's a good chance that when they're looking through at bare minimum a counter, they're saying to themselves, oh, well, this guy's got 2 running backs on his squad. Like, yeah, I know how I'm running my teams, but that doesn't matter. Not everyone does know that. So at bare minimum, pretend sometimes like your competitors are stupid or not perceptive or not knowing what is on your roster. Because if you send an offer that might have more value, that looks like it has more upfront value to your competitor, maybe that's the way to sell it. Because if you do this, I can assure you the price in their mind is already 2x. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, no, this is good. I would say, the heady part of it is don't go, I guess, during the draft, telling people, hey, this person that you just picked up, like I'm interested in him, like that's never going to end up very well for you. I did myself in this League of Legends draft. Like I had realized I kind of screwed up on quarterback, and I just had mentioned like, could we just start this thing over? Like, oops, because I've never gone so far without getting my quarterback too. I was able to get Cousins. I was sweating bullets over that. I think it's fine to talk about team needs and just like overall like your strategy as you're playing. Because I mean, we're on our phones doing this draft for. Well, this one was only 1 week, but oftentimes 2 weeks. So like you want to fill the void and talk about things a little bit, but never would I ever just like reach out to somebody and be like, shoot, I need a wide receiver. And the guy you just took, like, I'm kind of interested in that because you're never going to get a fair deal. Ever going to get a fair deal. You're going to have to give up either the player you took the previous round and lose out on ADP there. some sort of value, it's just going to go badly for you. But I don't have any problem with coming out and discussing how maybe you thought you messed up. But reaching out for help or reaching out to make a trade to fix it during the draft, I think is just not going to end well for most people.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with table talk, as they call it. I would never make a rule against it, but I think more often than not, if you're engaging in it, it's going to lead to you giving up information that you don't want to give up potentially, and give an advantage to your opponent. And I mean, that's how I always read it when it happens, or I try to read it that way. So I'm always trying to gain that edge, I guess. I don't know if that makes me like maniacal or something like that, but
just normal.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I mean, that was actually pretty quick. So I'm going to ask one other question. Why do you think people don't like thin waivers? Like, I feel like I've ran into this a couple different times where we're like, it was this draft too, but I've been in other drafts where it's like, why are we doing a 30, 31 round draft? There's going to be nothing on waivers. So what? Like, who cares? Like, what was like, you're not going to find the next Puka. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about that? Is that a problem for you guys?
This is not a problem for me. I prefer it that way because I hate waivers. But I think the simple answer is that most of us have some sort of background, extensive background, or years and years of playing redraft, where we're used to 5 bench spots, maybe 6 bench spots, start 9 or 10, and there's always waivers. There's always somebody available on waivers, and people like that. I think one of the best things about Dynasty is that like you don't necessarily have to cover up mistakes with waivers. You just draft well, and then hopefully the waivers are guys you already drafted, right? So if you go to read a waiver wire article week 2 and it has so and so on there, in your redraft leagues, you have to go out there and try to bid for him because he's probably not on your roster. Right? He's only owned in 70% of ESPN leagues or whatever it is. Well, in Dynasty, he's owned in 98% of leagues. Somebody already drafted him, and that's the cool part about Dynasty. You already get a drafted guy. Like, these guys are going to end up on waivers. Like, it feels so damn good when I go to Sleeper or wherever, and it's like, hey, these are the top waiver ads for the week. I'm like, I already have those guys rostered. That's what's amazing, and that's why I don't care if the waivers are thin. I don't care. Like, I like having the feeling of knowing I already drafted that guy.
Yeah,
I just think
that's a great time to sell them too.
Yeah, I just think that the redraft background that we all come from initially when we're starting Dynasty, I think just not used to that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. In that same vein, I also think that because so many players, especially in this league that we're kind of bringing that league integrity question mark up, I think a lot of people do come from the redraft mindset where trading assets isn't so feasible. So the idea of having, potential assets that are only worth, a late 4th or maybe not even worth a 4th, they're almost like non-tangible assets. They have no value to anyone until they start touching grass. So, that's kind of the differentiation for me for a lot of players to really grasp the idea that every single player that you're touching in this draft, like, has to have some type of potential value for you. Even in this draft, for instance, prime example, Tyrod Taylor. I saw someone take Aaron Rodgers. Zach Wilson future doesn't look particularly great in New York. And I'm just like, I could potentially end up with the QB2 in New York where there's another 40-something-year-old quarterback as the starter. There's going to be someone sometime this season, especially with my build, right? My build is basically all youth. The highest drafted quarterback I had was Will Levis. I was like, I could potentially trade Tyrod at some point for maybe even, as crazy as this sounds, a late 3rd, depending on how desperate someone is, especially the guy who owns Aaron Rodgers. And it's just like, funny enough, that dude reached out to me at some point during the draft and was like, hey, like, I'm going to give you my last 2 picks in this draft for Tyrod. I'm like, there's no value for that for me, right? Yeah. Like, you're going to have to pay up when you need Tyrod. That's unfortunately how this game goes. Yeah. And that's where the value comes. Those types of picks mean a lot. I think if you looked at that board between at least Josh, Uriah, myself, Billy, and maybe even Matt, those last 5 to 6 rounds, there's a lot of potential there to gain, thirds and fourths out of a lot of those players within probably the first 6 weeks of the season. And I think that's really where quote unquote league integrity comes from. It's being able to create those values for those players and draw out the value that you're looking for outside of a bidding war, right? The bidding war doesn't need to happen in the waivers. I'd much rather it happen between owners personally. And that's kind of how I see the value of the league, is where there's more trades happening rather than, more waiver bids happening on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And just to your point, looking at the board here really quick, Gardner Minshew, the Hendon Hooker, Flacco, Trey Lance, O'Connell, that's a little high, but Garoppolo, Tannehill, Willis, Winston, Browning, those kind of guys I think are what Jake is alluding to there. So yeah, definitely on the same page.
All right, let's hit on some trades before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
All right, so I made a trade. It's a blockbuster trade, but I needed a quarterback.
Uriah trade right here.
Yeah, this is what I did. This is what I do. I needed a quarterback. I needed a quarterback in one of our buddy Dan's Dynasty leagues. Shout out Scottish Nitro. I sent him an offer for Russell Wilson, pretty low ball. I think I have all the 10s. I have like 110, 210, 310, 410. Like I didn't trade any of my picks, didn't acquire anymore. I sent him like the 210 because I didn't want to give him the 110. He rejected, but another guy that had on the block was Minshew. And so I lowballed him too. And I said, hey, here's my 410. It got accepted right away. No back and forth, no nothing. I woke up and was like, oh shit, I got myself a starting quarterback, because my two quarterbacks in there I thought I set forever. I have Josh Allen and I have Justin Fields. So I had to solve a Justin Fields problem. Picked up Minshew for the 410. Don't want to even draft a 410 in the first place. I just need Minshew to start as long as Russell Wilson does. Once Russell Wilson's benched, I won't need Minshew.
Yeah. I mean, I like this regardless, honestly, because it's just what we were talking about. I think that Minshew's value can definitely rise above the 410. At the very least, you can get the return on the investment of like a third round pick, I think, by the end of this all. But yeah, you definitely have a starting quarterback right now. If you're like in contention or something like that, I think, between him and Aiden O'Connell, he's going to edge Aiden O'Connell out. If they do something different at the quarterback position, that's a whole nother story. Still like this for you, no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's a smash.
All right, next one is Josh Allen for Anthony Richardson, 101 and 201. Oh, I remember this one.
I mean, this is pretty easily Allen for me. I mean, it's a good trade, don't get me wrong. Actually, I don't know. I mean, this is a really good trade.
Yeah.
But I think it's Allen for me.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this. I probably teeter-tottered either between the Twitter box and the chat. And most often than not, I'm just going to go with Josh Allen. Because Josh Allen and 3 assets, or 3 assets, but you could walk right here with Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams, and the 201 for Josh Allen. I think it's still a pretty good haul for Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think you still have to go with the guy who's done it. And so I think Josh Allen's the move here.
Yeah, I guess the way that I'm looking at it is, if you looked at this as just pure startup value, you're giving up the startup 101 for potentially the startup 110 and 111, 110 and 112, something along those lines. It feels pretty close, honestly.
It is. Yeah.
This is the type of trade that if it lands, you've honestly completely overhauled your quarterback room in the right direction for a pretty decent price. But if you flop on that 101, you're going to look like an idiot in 24 months. But sometimes you do have to bite that bullet. I do think that this is a little bit closer than I originally anticipated looking at it. I still probably slide to the proven asset in Allen over the 2 unproven assets, because I think AR is still unfortunately quote unquote unproven, regardless of the 4 great weeks that he played last year. But yeah, it's a good trade. I think this would be one of those, if it sat in my inbox, I'm sitting there sweating my ass off.
Yeah.
my BO is coming through the pits, and I'm like, I should have layered up a couple more times before I got this offer.
Team build is super important with this one, because if your team is devoid of talent and you have Josh Allen, like this is probably a smash deal, right? Like you're like, yeah, I have to do this. So it's definitely a really, really good and interesting trade. Yeah, love that.
All right. Next one, Keenan Allen, the new Bears wide receiver 1. Keenan Allen for David Montgomery and Raheem Shaheed. I won't talk about it too much, but I think the Monty side and the Shaheed side for me.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to adjust our thinking on what Keenan Allen is rest of career.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's no longer the target hog that he was in LA. I mean, he's obviously older, and then now he's next to DJ Moore. And yeah, it's just, I think it's going to be too much to overcome at this late stage. Yeah, give me the running back, and I'll take the flyer on Shaheed.
Yeah, this was a inbox offer I received throughout the week this week. And honestly, my thinking here was more so with regards to who I was selling Keenan to more than the value, funny enough. I think that the two teams on paper are probably a Keenan away from one another, regardless of whether or not you think Keenan hits to the same levels that he did in Los Angeles. I still think that 12 to 15 points per game is there. I don't know if we're going to see that same output from Monty, to be honest. I think that there's a good chance that his role slightly deteriorates this upcoming season, given how Gibbs performed without Monty being there without him. So it's something to be mindful of, but it was, in my mind, I just couldn't give up Keenan to someone that I think is going to compete with me for a top 3 position for this price. And I felt like if I'm going to sell it to anybody, I'm definitely not going to sell it to him, and I'm going to sell it at a premium. Like, I don't feel like this is a premium. This feels like probably around market. KTC, I think, had it as a larger gap. And I think that's because they overvalue Shaheed personally, but that's just, that's the name of the game on KTC.
Okay. All right. Jamar Chase, Jonathan Taylor. Oh, big boy trade. Jamar Chase, Jonathan Taylor for the 103. Jalen Waddle and Bryce Young.
I have context for this trade before we jump into it. So this was just after another startup that I happen to have been doing at the same time as the draft that Billy, Uriah, Josh, and myself were doing. One of the teams drafted the 102, then traded the 102 and the 111 for the 101. They had Chase as their first overall pick. So what they're trying to do here was trade Chase plus JT to then close out the gap of the 101, the 103, the 104, add Waddle and Young on top of that, and then try and trade Waddle for the 105 or 106, and then close out 4 of the top 6 picks in this upcoming rookie draft. Just for some context of kind of the thought process of one of the owners.
So essentially went from like a potential like contender type team maybe to full rebuild. Like, let me go full rebuild, and because like Young is obviously a rebuild asset, and then if he's trying to gain all these picks, then that's what he's trying to do, right? Sure. I mean, if that's definitely not the way I play the game, just because there's a lot of variance in that kind of build out, and potentially hitting, potentially not hitting. We know the hit rates on these guys. It's shaky ground you stand on when you put all your eggs in the rookie basket. But I understand, getting the rookie fever, that's the build he wanted to go. Personally, I would have just held my ground and held on to Chase and JT. I think, any way you kind of break it down, you're going to most likely end up value wise being on the Chase JT side. But I get it. I get what they're trying to do. But yeah, that's just, for me, I'll take the 2 proven players.
Yeah, Chase and JT. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what they're trying to do, but I wouldn't advise doing that.
The crazy thing is here, I think this is one of those situations where you overanalyze the rebuild almost. Like, the focal point of the rebuild should be the Jamar Chase. It shouldn't be how do I get Jamar Chase off for more assets to then help the rebuild in my mind when you're starting off of the startup? Like the startup should be how you're building your team for the future already. And just because you didn't land on all of the picks that you wanted from the rookie draft doesn't mean that you need to necessarily throw away the proven talent just to get more rookie value, especially when you're then isolating that rookie value. You're almost devaluing the rookie value because you're holding all of it. It pushes the market to not want to touch any of it because they're going to say to themselves, there's no other rookie value in the first round now, potentially in the top 6 picks. Like, I'm not going to trade you anything because I know you're going to charge me too much. So if anything, I think that this strategy, unfortunately, can kind of come back and bite you in the ass if it ends up being successful in the sense of being able to acquire 4 of those top 6 picks. So just words.
Well said.
Words. No, I think that made a lot of sense. Yeah. It's yeah.
All right. Last one. This one. Okay. Christian McCaffrey and Kamara for the 110, the 212, and Monty again. I don't have a lot to say, but it's got to be the CMC side. I think I'd want CMC more than the 110, 212, and Monty.
It is rookie fever season. Like everybody wants the picks right now. Everybody wants to get rid of the vets, which is understandable. And I'm not into buying running backs during the offseason. Typically I am like, yo, okay, I'll sell some running backs for some picks. But when I'm selling CMC, like I would like to get 110 plus alone. If I'm doing that right now, you want to get like the first round pick plus alone. And here you're giving up CMC and Kamara for the 110. And yeah, Monty is fine. We just talked about him. 212 is potentially nothing. It just seems like you're giving, whoever's giving up CMC here is undervaluing him significantly for whatever reason.
Yeah. In this situation, and the reason I brought this up, it's a slight underdog under the hood question mark. And so my question for the two of you is, if you find yourself to acquiring an asset as big as a Christian McCaffrey, undervalued, where you're now almost in this own micro market, are you acquiring him for too low to then resell him in that market?
No, people forget time heals all wounds. You just got to wait a little bit. And especially like, all it takes is week 1 or 2, him hitting a 30-point game.
Yep.
And, game's on. Like, just start shopping around, asking around, hey, I don't think I'm contending this year. Anybody want CMC? And just see if somebody comes with, that, I'll give you my 25 first plus, this young player on my taxi, whatever it is, right? And you can start building up some packages where you can move on from CMC, because I do think, like, I get the idea of wanting to move on from CMC, right? Like, he's 27, 28 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
The wheels are falling off at some point. Okay. They are. He's obviously such a difference maker that he's worth acquiring for a late first and some stuff, and you're getting Kamara. So obviously it's a whole different situation, but just, in a vacuum for CMC, like, he is worth that for sure to then turn around and turn into something greater down the road. Absolutely. I think this is just way undervaluing an asset who is likely to way outperform that pick value in terms of points added to your team.
Yeah, if you're asking if you would acquire assets that you think are undervalued in order to trade them, that's a lot of work.
He's like, I just did it.
I did well, but it's a lot of work. And I think that anytime, shout out Josh, I hear sometimes like, oh, well, if not, I could just trade him later. I'll pick him up. Yeah, maybe I would, but I could just trade him away later. Well, sometimes you can't just trade him away later. Like, you can't, like, CMC could just fall down the stairs. Like, there's no guarantee.
Somebody's taking his legs out.
Nancy
it might be Uriah, honestly.
It's just
Uriah with a baseball bat
in the kitchen. No, it's really that's a slippery slope to buy thing. It's kind of like trading options, but I don't know if you guys are familiar with trading at all, but yeah, it's a slippery slope to try to project that you'll be able to actually make this move later. So even if like you're like, man, it's a smash deal, I'm gonna take CMC, I'm gonna trade him away. Like you might not be able to. So I'd be careful with that.
To be fair, I think I saw the team that acquired CMC, and the team is definitely going to be competing. So it's kind of a dual threat move, I think, where it works, in your favor in terms of, like this guy, if he's going to add the points to my team, then so be it. Let's go for it. But if I want to get rid of him, I should have the option to get rid of him for more than I acquired him for. So I mean, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. I'm more risk averse than not. So these are typically moves that I'm staying away from, right? Like I'm not buying these running backs for the most part. I've said it over and over again, but I think in this situation, the price was low enough where it made sense to acquire the running backs during the offseason. I mean, even Kamara, if Kamara hits like he has been even last year from a PPR perspective, it's going to be nuts, especially for that. Again, from a production perspective, if you're just working off points, your team is going to, benefit greatly from that move. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good trade for the CMC guy. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
You crushed it, brother. I'm good.
Crush. All right. Well, thank all of you for giving us a listen. Check us out on YouTube. Billy's doing a really good job there with the player profiles and the stuff he's doing with Jake. The whole YouTube channel's actually turning out pretty well. Pretty proud of those guys. Listen to us on Spotify if you can. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at Willie Beeman, DFF, and at Jake Abrams. Join our Discord. It's free. It's awesome. And we're talking Dynasty pretty much 24/7 there. Other than that, y'all have a good night.
Later.
Peace.